Mark Whitaker's email inbox was flooded with tips and leads every day as a top investigative journalist for CNN.
But on February 13, 2018, one message stood out among the rest. An anonymous sender had reached out to him, but it wasn't a source or a whistleblower looking to expose wrongdoing. Instead, the email contained a chilling threat: if you don't stop investigating, redacted company, something bad will happen to your family.
The threat was short, blunt, and unmistakable in its intent.
Mark knew he had to take immediate action, not just for his own safety but also for that of his loved ones. He immediately notified CNN's security team and began working with them to identify the sender. But what made this threat particularly disturbing was the level of detail it contained. The email mentioned specific projects Mark had been working on, including a high-profile investigation into redacted company's business practices. It even hinted at potential repercussions for his family if he continued to pursue the story. Mark couldn't help but wonder how someone had managed to gather such intimate information about him and his work.
As he delved deeper into the threat, Mark discovered that it wasn't an isolated incident.
Other journalists and whistleblowers who had spoken out against redacted company had received similar messages in the past.
The pattern was clear: those who dared to expose the truth were being targeted with intimidation tactics designed to silence them.
Mark's decision to investigate further put him at odds with powerful forces, but he refused to back down. He knew that as a journalist, it was his duty to shine a light on wrongdoing and hold those accountable responsible for their actions. But little did he know that the stakes would soon escalate, putting not just his job but his life in jeopardy. As Mark continued to dig deeper into the threat, he began to realize the true extent of the danger he faced. With each passing day, he felt increasingly isolated, unsure of who to trust or where to turn for help. The line between truth and intimidation was about to become increasingly blurred, and Mark would soon find himself facing a choice: silence his warning or risk everything to expose the truth. On February 13, 2018, a chilling email landed in the inbox of Mark Whitaker, an investigative journalist with CNN's investigative unit. The message was from an anonymous sender, but its contents were unmistakable: a death threat aimed squarely at Mark and his family. The threat read, "If you don't stop investigating, name redacted, we will make sure your wife and children suffer." The email went on to say that they had been watching Mark's every move, and if he continued down this path, there would be consequences. This wasn't an empty threat. Mark knew it was a clear attempt to intimidate him into backing off. As the investigation continued, the stakes only grew higher. Mark began receiving increasingly aggressive messages, including phone calls from unknown numbers with no one on the line. The constant barrage of threats made his family's safety a top concern. They were forced to take precautions, always looking over their shoulders in public and altering their daily routines. The targets of these threats weren't just Mark and his family, they also included several key witnesses who had come forward with crucial information. One witness reported receiving a threatening phone call from an unknown number, while another received a cryptic message on social media warning them to back off or face the consequences.
As the pressure mounted, CNN's management was faced with a difficult decision: how to protect their journalist and his family without jeopardizing the investigation. With each passing day, Mark grew more anxious about the potential fallout. Little did he know that this was only the beginning of a long and grueling journey, one that would test his resolve, his courage, and his commitment to uncovering the truth. Mark Whitaker's email inbox was flooded with threatening messages in the days that followed.
The tone was menacing, and the language was graphic.
The sender boasted about their ability to track down Mark's family and inflict harm.
But what made these threats particularly disturbing was the specificity with which they referenced Mark's work. The email chain revealed a pattern of escalating harassment, with the sender becoming increasingly brazen as they attempted to intimidate Mark into silence. The tone shifted from veiled threats to outright warnings that his life and the lives of those around him would be put in danger if he didn't retract his reporting. Mark knew he had to act quickly to protect himself and his loved ones.
He notified CNN's security team, who sprang into action to enhance Mark's personal protection protocols.
The network also launched an internal investigation to identify the source of the threats. As the days turned into weeks, Mark's investigation into a complex financial scandal continued to gain momentum. His reporting had uncovered a web of deceit and corruption that went all the way to the top of a major corporation. But with each new revelation, the pressure from the sender intensified. Mark received phone calls in the middle of the night, with an unknown voice screaming at him to drop the story. He was bombarded with hate mail and online harassment, all aimed at silencing his investigation.
Despite the mounting intimidation, Mark refused to back down.
He knew that he had uncovered a story that was too important to be ignored. The stakes were high, but Mark's conviction only grew stronger as he continued to dig deeper into the scandal. His reporting had sparked a national conversation about accountability and transparency in corporate governance. The whistleblower at its center, a former executive who had come forward with explosive evidence of corruption, remained in hiding, fearing for their life.
Mark's determination to see justice served was unwavering, even as the threats against him escalated.
He knew that he was not just fighting for his own safety but also for the truth. The death threats and harassment only strengthened Mark's resolve to expose the scandal, no matter the cost. As Mark Whitaker struggled to process the shocking message, he couldn't shake off the feeling that his investigation had touched a raw nerve. The threat was a stark reminder that truth-telling comes with risks, and those who dare to expose wrongdoing often face severe consequences.
Mark's investigation was centered around allegations of corruption within a prominent financial institution.
He had gathered substantial evidence pointing to embezzlement and money laundering on a massive scale. The whistleblowers he had spoken to were terrified, fearing retaliation from powerful individuals who would stop at nothing to silence them.
The death threat sent a chill down Mark's spine, but it also reignited his determination to bring the truth to light.
He knew that his investigation was having an impact, and this kind of intimidation was merely a desperate attempt to discredit him and undermine his work. It's worth noting that the financial institution in question had a long history of scandals and controversies. According to public records, they had paid over $1 billion in fines and settlements in the past decade alone. The pattern of behavior suggested a culture of recklessness and disregard for accountability. Mark's investigation was not just about exposing wrongdoing, it was also about shedding light on the complex systems that enable corruption to thrive. He knew that if he could expose the truth, it would not only bring justice to those affected but also contribute to a broader conversation about the need for greater transparency and oversight in financial institutions. As Mark delved deeper into his investigation, he encountered more evidence of cover-ups and intimidation tactics used by the institution's powerful allies. He discovered that the company had spent millions on lobbying efforts, attempting to influence policy decisions that would have favored their interests. The situation was further complicated by the fact that several key witnesses had gone missing or were coerced into silence. Mark realized that his investigation was not just about one individual but a symptom of a larger problem: the silencing of whistleblowers and the erosion of trust in institutions designed to protect the public interest. As Mark continued to follow the trail, he began to uncover more disturbing connections between the financial institution and high-ranking government officials. The implications were staggering. If true, this would mean that corruption had seeped deep into the very fabric of power, compromising the integrity of those sworn to serve the public. The more Mark dug, the clearer it became that his investigation was not just a matter of personal courage but also a testament to the resilience of truth itself. Despite the threats and intimidation, he remained committed to shedding light on the darkest corners of power, knowing that justice would ultimately prevail. Mark Whitaker's phone rang nonstop for days after he received that ominous email. The death threat sent a chill down his spine, and for the first time in his career as an investigative journalist, he felt truly vulnerable. He tried to shake off the feeling, but it lingered, making him question every decision he made on the story. The CNN team was in crisis mode, working around the clock to unravel the mystery behind the threat. They scoured the digital trail,
searching for any hint of the sender's identity.
But like a ghost, the anonymous figure